Hello and welcome to a special one-hour edition of Talking Point. You've heard the announcements during the recent National Day rally. If you're planning to have a child, you'll get more time off from work come April 2025. It all sounds great, but how does it affect the rest of us? We ran a poll before the show asking you if it's fair to employers and your colleagues. Over 330 of you responded, and it was almost split down the middle. 47% said no, it isn't fair. So what is it that we want? And how can we make it less painful to those who don't have kids? Join us live now. We want you to be part of this discussion too. You can post your comments and questions by scanning this QR code. We'll try to take as many as we can during the show. Now, to recap, here's what parents are getting. Maternity leave remains unchanged at 4 months. Paternity leave of 4 weeks to be mandated, 10 weeks of additional parental leave, which is by default, shared 50-50 between mom and dad. Now, as you've seen, I shared the poll results earlier on. 47% of people actually think that no, it's not fair. Ronald, you have a company and you employ mainly men. Why do you think they're saying that it's not fair?
I think most importantly is for the employee, right? I think it's perfectly okay for the employee point of view, but for the employer, because they see that the additional cost involved in hiring the replacement for the role.
Okay, tell me about the replacement costs.
Okay, replacement costs can come in 2 areas. One of them is the hiring cost that you pay the employment agency to get the person. And of course, you also need to train the person. After training person, you have to hand over. So that period of time may be about 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay, we'll delve a little deeper into costs later on. Rafe, what do you think?
I think it's not fair to the rest of us singles out there, because I think the employment management should have equity, so which means they must have equal benefits in everything, so equal number of leaves, including childcare leaves.
That is really interesting because you set equal benefits for everything and for everyone. I have a poll question for you. If we had to limit the amount of paid leave given, which should it be allocated to? Paternity leave, childcare leave, family care leave, or just mental wellness, well-being kind of leave? Scan the QR code you see on the screen to take part in our poll. Okay, before we take a look at the poll results, let me just ask Aoife and Kai, both of you are parents of young children. What do you think? Is it fair? Are you going to surprise me with your answer? What do you think, Kai? Go ahead.
I think it... Sorry, what is the question again?
Do you think it's fair? I mean, our poll results have shown that nearly 50% of people think it's fair.
So I think for the 50% that says no, I think we also want to understand what is the exact demographics of the people who are saying no, considering the fact that, Singaporean workers, we do think of ourselves most of the time. And I think where I'm coming from is that I would like to know those who are saying no at this point in time, are they single, or they do have children, or is it possible for those single employees able to empathize and show compassion to working mothers or working parents in totality as well? Okay,
you heard Kai. Scan the QR code you see on the screen right now and tell us whether it's possible, if you're a single, to show empathy. Aoife, let me get to you. Do you think that we should stop at shared parental leave? What other kind of leave would you also have?
I think shared parental leave is a good way to start. I think but other types of leave, such as like maternity and paternity, are also important to strictly allocate it to the mom and the dad. And I think that is also...
What about childcare leave? Would you rather have more childcare leave?
I feel like childcare leave would be similar to shared parental leave as well. Although yes, usage-wise is different, but we only have 6.
But I think I think it also requires accumulation, right?
Yeah.
Like currently, I think with two younger children, we are still allocated the 6 days of childcare leave. So I think like that has to change to better support of our children's upbringing and also development when they go from like 1-year-old to 2-year-old and so forth. So I think like at every stages of their development requires very specific needs.
I see you, Rave, nodding away. But inside your heart, Rave, are you just going like, oh, lamat no la, some more?
No, actually, I belong to the other 53% that supports parental leave as well. I just don't want to be left out. So
Okay.
I think that I'm happy, you guys deserve the leave, you're tired and all that. But I also want everybody to know that don't make the assumption that singles only feed one mouth.
For sure.
We also have family and we deserve the same number of leaves that the young couple have.
Definitely.
We'll explore that a little bit later on. In the
Yes.
meantime, let's take a look at what our home viewers are saying. Let's take a look at the poll results. Wow, there you have it. 52% of people, which is half of them, say they would rather have family care leave. Paternity leave is the least. And mental wellness comes in a close second. This is really, really interesting. Let's talk about family care leave, which is the majority of our home viewers have opted right now. Should single employers as well as caregivers be entitled to more leave benefits to settle their own matters? Family care leave. Actually, Sarah, you are the HR expert here. What do you think? Why do you think people are choosing family care leave?
Yeah, I think the demographics of Singapore now, there are more people who actually are choosing to be single and they are happy. And of course, there are also those like the dual income, no kids, right? The thing which we often hear about now, the buzzword.
Yes.
And if they do not have kids, but what happens is that there's a sandwich generation where they're also taking care of their parents. So they do need that caregiving leave because currently they are just eating into their own annual leave. So I do have like colleagues who actually are single, but if their parents are going for operation, they do need to have that time to take care of them. So family caregiving leave is one possible way. But going back to the parental leave that we're talking about, it also serves a broader national agenda. So I think in the sense it's like fair or unfair, sometimes it's just that in the whole scheme of things, it's quite, as a Singaporean, that it serves a greater society.
We'll get into that. I presume you're talking about the fertility rate, which we'll get into quickly. But in the meantime, I want to, the number 2 option in our poll earlier on was actually mental wellness. As a matter of fact, 33% of people opted for mental wellness. What do you think of that? Because mental wellness days off is something that can benefit everyone. And better, you don't need any documentation proof for that, for mental wellness. So should we replace childcare leave and family care leave with this so that everyone can benefit? What do you think, Kai?
I think with the whole national conversation around mental health, I think definitely mental health leave, mental wellness leave, it is very much important, right? Given,
Is that a yes? Do you think that it should be replacing the rest of the leave?
I don't think it should be replacing. I think conservatively, it has to balance out with the rest of the leaves that's on the chart right now.
Okay.
Given the conversations that we're currently having with the whole mental health awareness, and especially with the younger demographics, they are entering the workforce, there needs to be some flexibility in terms of from employers and larger organizations to offer that flexibility in terms of the HR policy that they are setting for their employees.
Rave, would you like to see that?
Yeah, sure. So for me, it's like mental wellness leave is something new, right? So if they have to introduce something new, which it means that the current leave system is not working. So I think rather than introducing new leaves and introducing new terms, I think what they can do is try to use the existing leaves, like medical leaves, and make it more mentally well for everyone. For example, my company, we do not expect employees to actually go to the doctor to take medical leave. So when they are on medical leave, they're just on medical leave, they do not need to provide any certification. So that could be in place. So that means your mental wellness leave could be in place of the current medical leave system. Like, why do you want staff members who are on medical leave to actually go to the doctor and then queue? You know, nowadays the hospitals, they have long lines, the clinics
I think
are crowded.
Ray is touching on something that is quite interesting to me. Basically, you are saying that take the current leave and repurpose it.
Yeah, just repurpose it instead of coming up with a new title. People don't know what to do with it. Employees don't know how to utilize it. I mean, employees don't know how to utilize it. Employers don't know how to, like, you know, he was mentioning something about, I think what his concern was is the paternity leave. Like, it's very concerning that it's only 3%. So I think what he means is that everything should have a fair balance. So what I think is that if you repurpose the whole entire situation, I think it's going to benefit everyone.
Okay.
I'm completely agreeable. But for the fact that I'm seeing 3.3% for paternity leave, I think this also shows how much education that's required for working fathers to be a lot more involved in their children's lives.
So for the record, Kai took 4 weeks of mandatory of paternity leave before it was mandated. So you are slightly ahead of the curve. We'll explore what you just touched on a little bit later on. But in the meantime, I want to tell you that women in Singapore, Sarah, you alluded to that. Women in Singapore are having fewer babies. In 2023, our total fertility rate dropped below 1 to 0.97% for the first time in history. Now, to put things in perspective, if we want the population to replace itself from one generation to the next, our fertility rate must more than double that. More than double, guys. You get a chance to vote at home. Will the extended shared parental leave boost fertility rates? What do you think? Yes or no? Will the extended shared parental leave boost fertility rates? Ronald, what do you think? Your kids are grown up already, but what do you think?
Okay, I personally feel that I think the people will still have to exercise discretion in really planning ahead whether they can afford. Yeah, because now we are in different times right now whereby there are a lot of challenges and a lot of distractions. So the parent themselves will have to really think carefully whether they can really give the best to the children. It's not knowing, it's not having like just the carrot just in front of you and just chasing the carrot there.
So you're saying that even with shared parental leave and all the incentives and the carrots that the government is giving, they still need to consider all the other things. Is that what you would say to your kids?
Yes, of course.
They're in their 20s?
Yes, right. Late 20s, they are in mid-20s right now. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. If we don't replace ourselves, and many countries in the world are not doing that, if we don't replace ourselves, it means that somebody has got to do the work. Where are we going to get these people from? Are you happy to have more foreigners on our shores? Aoife?
Yes and no.
Really dependent on the particular foreigners you're talking about.
Yes, because having more of them will then impact, our jobs in that sense. But having more of us means we need to really work in addressing this issue. And of course encourage, the younger generation to consider having kids. So it's a bit of both for me.
Rafe, what do you think? What are we going to do? There's not enough people to work, basically. You and I are going to have to pay more taxes,
Yeah, I completely understand. Actually, I'm very pro the fact that foreigners are in the country. I think they're actually helping to boost the economy. Like, as much as we're annoyed with the number of people out there when we go shopping or when we go out to Sentosa, we need to understand that these are the people, these are the buyers, they are buying things.
So you're okay?
Yeah, I'm
you
okay
are
with
okay
it.
If we bring in the foreigners?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
To do the work?
As long as the locals are also benefiting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's
so
take a look.
we're given the fair opportunity. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we asked you at home, what do you think? And let's take a look at the results now. 1,300 people polled for this question, and the answer is no. 80%, close to 80% of you who are watching the show, whether it's online or on your TV set, say no, they do not think that it will boost the fertility rates. Is anyone surprised by the results?
No, I'm not.
Sarah, you are keeping quiet. Let's hear from you.
I think that for the government, they'll probably be very surprised with the stats because they came up with the policies. And the thing is that I think if you're already on the fence thinking whether you want to, that would probably just bring you to the other side to say yes.
So it'll tip you over?
Yes.
With all the allowances and all that? Okay.
But I think if there are people who are set on their mind that, it's just too costly, because like you talk about 1 kid and enrichment, that would be, and you have 2 kids, that would be double or even, So I think that the mindset is the first thing that has to be changed.
So one of the things when we are talking about, again, I bring it back to today's discussion, which is, are these policies, they are good for people who really want to have kids, but what about for everybody else? So Aoife, I want to ask you, when you go back, you went back to work after you had your first baby, and then you quit 3 months later.
Around that, yeah.
How can mothers, if you like, how can parents be fairer to their companies and their co-workers when they go back to work?
I think it's offering more flexibility within the office itself, within the workplace, beyond just leave entitlement. So leave entitlement, one day we will run out of it. So it came, when push comes to shove, I actually needed to apply for unpaid leave just to be there for my son if he's fallen ill and things like that.
Did you ever feel that you were discriminated against because you had a newborn baby?
In a way, you can't help to feel that way. I think the transition of being a first-time mom, it hits you hard, and there's a lot that you will need to encounter and overcome, not just at home, but of course in the workplace itself. You know, there might be sudden shift of perspective, you know, that you have in your role, or even when you have been gone for a long time, a lot of changes might have already happened during your time of leave, you see. So there's a lot of adjustment, and the transition is huge. So sometimes you can't help to feel like, no one gets me, no one hears me. And of course that can feel a little bit discriminating in that sense.
Okay, so to some extent you did
to some
feel
extent,
it.
yeah.
Let me ask you the same questions. Now, did you think, is there discrimination against parents who take parental leave? That's our poll question. Is there discrimination against parents who take parental leave? Yes or no? I'll get back to you with the results later on. Now, moving on, in this day and age, let me ask you, Ronald, do you know of employers who may discriminate against people like Aoife?
I think they will try to accommodate most of the time, but sometimes it depends on the size of the company. Because when the company is new and the number head count is pretty low, let's say 5 people, right? One person going on leave to give birth, that will really take a toll on the company, because it's either you have to find someone in a short period of time to replace that person for time being, or is to spread the work among the remaining people there. And so that will actually take a toll on the mental wellness of the remaining person as well, because they work extra hard. They put more hours into the work.
When was the last time that happened in your company?
It happened, I think that was quite some time ago. I think over maybe 15 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, quite some time
ago. So this is completely new to you. If you have the same situation again, it might be a bit tricky. Just like what Aoife you were sharing. So Aoife was the first person to go on maternity leave in a long period of time within the company, and she had shared with me that the company basically didn't know what to do. Yeah. Sarah, I want to ask you, do moms returning to work face this discrimination more than dads, you think?
I think that with more progressive HR practices now, it's not as prominent as last time where people feel it. But I think the main thing is that the HR has to be, or even the management has to be more caring. The communication has to be open. So for example, like when Aoife was returning to the workplace, the HR could actually check in on her to see how are you coping as a new parent. So I think that approach would actually help to even make the person feel that there's no discrimination, and it's a better adjustment for the staff as well.
Okay, let's take a look at the poll results. Yes, I do have them. The question I had asked you was, is there discrimination against parents who take parental leave? Oh, wow. Okay, 54% say yes and 45% say no. I'd like to hear from you. Those are the numbers that we're looking at. Some qualitative answers will be great. I'd like to hear from you. You can scan a QR code when it does appear and give me your comments as well. Now, if you are seeing that the numbers are flickering, they are really dynamic because we've got new viewers joining us all the time and they are voting all the time. So thank you very much. That's fantastic. Share the link with your friends and get them watching. Okay, actually, speaking of poll, we want to go to the next poll. And the question is, do you think do you think we will run the risk of employers starting to discriminate when they hire? For example, discriminate those in childbearing years. Scan the QR code to vote. Ronald, so just to follow up on our conversation, it's very stressful for you when you run the business.
Yeah.
Will you start to discriminate against those in their childbearing years?
I think it depends on the role. Yeah, if the role, if like, for example, I have a lot of IT engineers, right? Having one less, it doesn't really matter that much. But however, if it's a key role, let's say it's in finance, or that role is kind of important. So that one is, I think, good. Even if you find someone to replace, it takes time. It really takes time. Yeah.
Okay.
So that will be a real problem. But on the other hand side, I'm thinking it actually tips the game a bit different, whereby it makes the older generation, older person, more hireable now. Yeah.
Because now you are, the people who are older become a more attractive market to hire.
Yes.
Next time you can hire me. Not next time, now, right now you can hire me. Okay, we asked the poll results, and we asked you a question, I do have the results. Let's take a look. The question was, is there discrimination against parents who take parental leave? The answer is 57%, close to 58%, right. What are your thoughts about that? Sarah, does it surprise you?
I think that, especially for just now, Ronald talked about, especially in an SME where the manpower is already very lean, resources are so constrained, so the operational disruption is felt even more, pronounced. And so naturally, I think sometimes colleagues will feel that, hey, I have to bear the load when my colleagues go on especially an extended leave. So, in a sense that I can see where they come from, but it is important that we bear in mind that ultimately we want that mutual support to be in that company where there's a cohesiveness, and because sometimes it might be in this phase where I need someone to cover me, but down the road my other colleague may.
I want to ask Ray very quickly. I mean, the results speak for themselves. I mean, people actually think that parents who take there will be discrimination. How does that make you feel as a single?
Well, I think it's more on the workload. Yeah. So, or you mean like how do I feel about the discrimination?
That employers may actually start discrimination.
No, because as a single, I might be in that position someday. So then I don't think it's fair for companies to discriminate against people for wanting to take the leaves and all that. Actually, I don't understand why people have to feel guilty to take to take their entitlement.
That is a very powerful thing to say, and this coming from someone who is not entitled, who will not get any maternity or parental leave. We will need to take a short break now, but before we come back, I want you to scan the QR code you see on your screen right now and tell me in one word. Scan the QR code and tell me in one word how you felt when you had to cover someone who was on parental leave. How you felt when you have to cover someone on parental leave. We'll be back soon. Welcome back. We're having a discussion on the shared parental leave. Is it fair to all parties? Now, I'm going to ask you to help me visualize something. Let's take a look at this. As the name suggests, it is an out-of-office calendar. Now, under the new enhanced parental leave incentives, a mom can take 16 weeks or about 4 months of maternity leave. Add to that 6 days of childcare leave, and assuming she takes the default 50% of the shared parental leave, that's another 5 weeks. On top of that, she will also have her annual leave between 15 to 18 days. So, as an employer, if I had a female employee who has just given birth, I could potentially lose her for up to 6 months in a year. Ronald, I saw that smile. Now, let's move on over to the dad. Fathers are entitled to 4 weeks of paternal leave, 6 days of childcare leave, 50% of his shared parental leave, and let's not forget National Service Reservist, which can take up to 2 weeks a year. Adding on annual leave of 15 to 18 days. So for a male employer who becomes a father, they could be out of office for over 3 months. I don't know about you, but that had quite an impact on me when I looked at the calendars. I'll come to you in a bit. But going back to before the commercial break, I had asked you in one word, those of you who are watching this, describe how you felt when you had to cover someone on parental leave. Let's get back now to the poll results. This is really interesting. Here are the responses. Wow, okay. I like this one. Very Singaporean. Sian. Overload. Annoyed. Anxiety. Ooh, that's a bit disturbing, isn't it? Anxiety. Resigned. Fair. Stress. More sian again. Overload. Wow, okay. Actually, Kai, I would like to ask you, how does it make you feel as a new father of a 3-month-old, and you have an older one as well? How did all those words make you feel?
I think, like I mentioned earlier, I feel this comes from the lack of empathy and compassion to their fellow colleagues. To be honest, I'm actually terrified on the kind of workplace culture that they are currently in right now.
Why are you terrified?
To even have these sentiments, to be honest, because feeling unfair. I think this.
Are you disappointed?
Definitely, but I think disappointed is. I think it's a very simplified description, like for me to be able to, being cognizant of this like fact here. But go ahead.
Let me ask Ronald. Ronald, do you think the government reimbursements are sufficient?
No, definitely not.
Why?
Okay, because as I mentioned earlier on, you need to you get an employment agency to hire, and you have to go through that process of choosing and selecting the person, and it takes time and money. Then on top of that, you still have to train the person, and there's a process of handing over and parallel run. That means when the person comes on board, you have to parallel run with the existing person before he leaves. And that takes time as well.
Yeah, so I think just to add on that, I feel like new employees will need to be able to implement new policies in a way where it also serves them as well, as how these new policies is meant to serve new parents. Like,
so
for
basically
example,
what you're saying is that employers need to keep up with the times and change their policies.
And not just fall back on MOM guidelines, because yes, it serves as a guide, but as employers, we ourselves need to be proactive enough to be able to understand what's the current situation here right now. And the mindset needs to shift to be able to be a lot more sensitive and cognizant of today's times.
Sarah, Ronald had talked about the indirect costs or hidden costs. Right. Are there some other costs to your knowledge?
I think related to the poll, sometimes it's like when the colleagues who are covering for the staff, they are overburdened, that may lead to burnout. And with burnout, of course, if it's not addressed, then that will lead to the unfortunate resignation. So instead of like replacing one person, you now have 2 staff that you have to replace. And
that's real. You've come across that before on the ground.
Fortunately not, but it is a very real situation which has to be addressed, and that's why we say that getting help at an earlier start instead of like distribution of work to the existing staff is a very important consideration, whether our existing staff can take the workload.
Okay, I want to go to you, Rev, actually, because you are single, and I know that you have a colleague who is going on maternity leave soon.
Yes, that's right.
How will that impact you?
Okay, so how that impacts me is, so basically, we already know that she's going on leave. So that would mean that I start preparing earlier, way in advance. So I've got my own department to look after. And so I need to familiarize myself with her job scope and her responsibilities. So then I need to prepare, in advance. And then while she's away, I'm filling in her position. So
are you compensated for that?
No, I am not. I'm not compensated for. So I would like to be, I think it's fair for employers to actually try and compensate the singles who are filling in the position. It's only fair because we're literally doing a 2-person's job in the stipulated working hours. It's not OT, so we're not paying OT.
I know that there's something else that you have had to give up.
And also, for example, career progression. So, for example, you are in line for a promotion. So, what will happen is that stepping in to fill in another position would mean that you are on halt. You might not be able to be given the certain
the new responsibilities
and all that. Your employer might decide that this is not the right time for you, and someone else might be promoted instead. I don't know. Also, travel opportunities. So maybe your company decided to expand, but now because you have to fill in another person's position, it might impact your travel plans as well, and also personal travel plans. I like to travel. And
I feel you, Rafe, because she had been talking about how she had to not go on long leave, basically.
Yes.
Now, we've been talking about burden to employers as well as co-workers, but some companies have taken the lead in offering their staff enhanced parental leave. Since 2023, HSBC Singapore extended its maternity leave to 26 weeks, up from the mandated 16 weeks, and paternity leave to 8 weeks. That's more than the current mandatory 4 weeks. HSBC pays for this extra leave. How did the company do it? Well, joining me on Zoom now to tell us more is HSBC's Head of HR, Mukul Anand. Hello, Anand. How do you guys do it? How do you deal with the grief that some employees may have when they need to cover for other people?
Hello, Diana. I would not call it grief because if another colleague of yours is going through this significant life event, you should feel happy for them.
Yes.
But I do get the point in terms of workload and how it is distributed is really important. So, what we look at it as an opportunity. So opportunity for others, because it also gives opportunity to someone in the team whose manager is going on long-term leave to step in and step up and experience that role so that they're ready for it in the future. Now, I'm conscious that a large organization like HSBC also has the benefit of a big internal talent marketplace from where we can draw resources to fill in the gap. In some cases, especially for operational roles, we will go out and hire temporary resources as well. So I think there are various ways we try to alleviate, someone going on leave. But what's also important is those who are covering. Sorry
to interrupt. Speaking of resources, some people may feel that, of course, MNCs like yours can do it because you have deeper pockets. What would your response be to that?
It is true that the large companies like HSBC will have more manpower and resources to move around. But as you mentioned earlier, our policies essentially are way beyond even before the benefits came in or government funding, way beyond what the government funding was. And second is that we apply it uniformly to all employees, not just based on for whom we get the government benefits. And I do think from a financial perspective, the enhancements which are coming in, the government is funding most of it. I'm conscious that there will be additional cost, but I think what is really important, whether it's a large company or a small company, is doing advanced planning. I think advanced planning is the answer to potential issues in future, whether it's a small or large company.
Thank you, Mukul. That is a good tip. Now, one final question before I let you go. Do you see your parental leave and your very long parental leave as a way to attract and retain talent?
It is, so definitely, and there's also the well-being element, because well-being ultimately is linked to productivity, and that's how we look at it. It's really important because from a retention point of view, there's clear data which shows that employees who are on long-term leave are at the highest risk of disengagement and also attrition. So it's definitely a retention tool. And also in the market, people want to join companies which have progressive policies, especially when they're going through these life stages, because they want to feel supported if they go through that life stage. So I think that's where it is a attraction as well for people.
Thank you, Mukul, for your sharing. Now, while Mukul was talking, I can see Kai nodding away. We'll get back to you, Kai. We're going to take a short break, but before we do that, here's another poll for our viewers at home. Do you think parents will share the 10-week parental leave equally, 50-50 between mom and dad? Scan the QR code to poll your answer, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. The comments are coming in. We've received hundreds of them. Thank you very much. Let's take a look at some of them. Do I see the comments? Government should reimburse the ones covering the work. Okay, I see Rafe smiling. Let's take a look at the other comments. What is the point of taking parental leave if we are constantly made to answer emails or help out with work matters? Can we implement a rule to ensure that people on parental leave are left alone? Okay. And next comment, colleagues are left to shoulder additional responsibilities in their absence. With a lot of the workforce dealing with elderly parents, makes more sense to have family care leave. And let's take a look at one last one. How to ensure that parents are not abusing childcare or paternity leave for personal benefits, like going for holidays. There are many parents like this. Okay. I think truth of the matter, there will always be some, if you like, that will take advantage or abuse the situation. But I do want to go back to the first comment that we get, and that is that people, co-workers who take over the responsibilities ought to be compensated. This is a point, Rafe, that you have talked about. How would you like to be compensated?
Well, I think for a start, when you first go for the job, right, before you even start, maybe you can singles can negotiate for a higher base pay. All right, and then also I think they can also negotiate for more vacation time and any other thing that can attribute to the whole work-life balance. So in whatever ways that individual prefers, like this, my personal opinion is vacation time and higher base pay.
So that's really interesting, because instead of saying that, hey, I'm the victim here, I made the sacrifice, you are seeing this as an opportunity that you can use to say, I'm willing to cover, but you have got to compensate me in some ways.
Yes,
is this something that you would accept in your company, Kai?
I think for us, it's more of workload distribution across few co-workers. So I think it is not quite possible for us to, but definitely we are open to consider such arrangement if we do have opportunities whereby the co-workers themselves are actually bringing this up. And I think internally as the management, we will definitely consider such arrangement if it's as straightforward as, hey, person A is going on paternity leave and the workload will be allocated to one person. I think that's a lot more straightforward setup.
So I think what you're saying is that having an open conversation with the employees is very important.
And I think what he's also saying is that maybe for that stipulated period of time, 4 to 5 months, maybe the employee that is filling in can be given some kind of allowance.
Or remuneration, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
that is
definitely.
something that I know South Korea is doing, or definitely is going to go ahead with this. But let's go to the poll results. Earlier we had asked you if you think parents will share the 10-week parental leave equally 50-50. Well, you are talking to us. Let's take a look at the results. Does that surprise you? 83% say no, and 16 or 17% say yes. Again, the numbers are dynamic because we have viewers joining us and voting all the time. Thank you for taking part in the vote. Now, we are joined in this segment by To Zhihan, who just had a baby 3 months ago.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Well done. Wait till you hear this, okay? With the announcement of the extended shared parental leave, Zhihan is actually thinking about having another one. Why?
Wow.
Well, it is something that I'm considering. I'm not exactly certain yet, right? Because having a child, that's actually a lifelong commitment. It's a life major decision, right? Besides the leave, I guess there are more important practical considerations like your financial situation, right? Whether or not we have the time, the energy, right? We're not getting any younger to take care of the child. On the emotional front, whether or not we have the bandwidth.
But those incentives are enough to tip you over, at least for you to say, cannot for now.
Well, I guess it nudges me. It sweetens the pot, but not a major consideration.
It's not the deal breaker yet.
It is not, yeah.
Okay. As fathers, why do you think that the take-up rate, are you on paternity leave?
over already.
It's over already.
Yep.
Why do you think the take-up rate for paternity leave is so low?
Actually, it came as a surprise for me because in my organization, right, we have about 50 employees on the group level. So just this year alone, we have 3 fathers that exercise this paternity leave, right? So the take-up rate in my organization is actually 100%, right? I mean, I cannot really speak for other fathers out there. I mean, the circumstances may be different, right? Situation is different, but I guess it is a problem of being discriminated, right?
Do you mean people are afraid that they would be discriminated if they went on longer paternity leave?
Right, and that their career progression may be jeopardized because of that.
Right. You clearly have not that problem in your organization. Do you know of anyone else who feel that I better don't take the full 4 months? Later people say I don't really want to work.
Not really.
Okay, Kai, let me come to you. You took your 4 weeks paternity leave?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Yes.
and do you think that, because you are the leader in your organization,
Yeah.
do you think that you're sending a very clear signal to the men in your organization? Go ahead and take also.
Yes, definitely. And I think like I do lead by example, and I want to be able to show my colleagues and my co-workers that like, hey, if the government is offering this, even though it's not mandated yet, but we need to be able to consider that this is meant to help us fellow Singaporeans. And I think as employees, we need to be open to that fact that like, hey, if we can be reimbursed for all 4 weeks, I think we should take it.
Yep. Okay, let's take a look at some statistics that we have prepped. Paternity leave, government paid paternity leave. These are the numbers that we have so far. 2019, the take-up rate, as I've mentioned earlier, has remained relatively stable. And the Prime Minister had said at the rally that it's a big improvement from earlier on, from many years ago. I think it was 90. What was that? More than 11 years ago when paternity leave started. Where would you like, maybe Aoife, I should ask you this. Do you want this number to go up, and by how much? What is your ideal number?
100.
100. Why?
I think it's time for the dads to be involved in the child's first year, especially. And I think paternity leave is the first step to ensuring that they have that chance with the newborn. You know, many don't see that as a important opportunity, but it is actually a stepping stone for you to start bonding with your child.
Yeah, and I think
just
we
like the
were
mom,
discussing this earlier on as well, that the 4-week paternity leave is actually not only meant to care for the newborn, but it's also to care for our spouse as well, who's maybe in the postpartum phase, and they are also having challenges in to navigate on the childbirth. And I think like especially with us having 2 sons, it is an entire challenge altogether to be able to maneuver caring for a toddler. Oh dear, you have no idea.
Okay. Let me ask you, Shihan, baby is a boy or girl? Just now I didn't notice.
A girl.
It's a baby girl.
Right.
So what did you do during your paternity leave?
For me, I play a more supportive role, right? Because the primary caregiver, right, is still my wife. So for me, what I really do is to make sure that, whatever that my baby girl needs, whatever that my wife needs, it is all well taken care of. The domestic chores, right, the duties are all taken care of, so that she can have a good environment to recuperate. And I think what Kai mentioned, right, it's really fundamental as fathers, right? While we may not be the perfect primary caregiver, right, being the emotional strength and pillar of support for our wife, I think that's paramount.
Okay, just being there.
Yep.
And what about yourselves? You also need the paternity leave to take care of yourselves.
Yeah.
Not just your spouse. I think it's also, you need the rest. You're also going through waking up.
With that requires 8 weeks. Not 4 weeks.
This one, own self-change government law. If I want to ask you, both of you actually, the 10-week of shared parental leave, if you had number 3, how would you split it?
I would be open to an uneven number, means not 50-50, it could be 70-30.
70 to whom?
To Kai, as a dad.
Oh, okay.
Because I think the mums are well covered. But of course, if for any reason that the mum would prefer to be the main caregiver, then it should be able to work that flexibility.
Do you see a difference in your boy when daddy looks after him compared to when you look after him? What's the main difference?
Of course, the boy will look more like the daddy.
Okay, now I want to ask this question. Jiang, the reason why I asked you what you did during your paternity leave was there are still some people who say that, oh, you know, what do these men do when they go on paternity leave? Are they really involved, or they use it to do something else? Why do you think such thoughts still float around?
Well, I mean, we are an Asian society, right? So being a little bit more reserved, that's probably one of the reasons why. But I guess with the extension, right, it will most likely encourage fathers to be more involved. Like I read, you know, in some Scandinavian countries where the paternity leave is really generous, they actually observe that fathers actually become more involved. And coincidentally, just this afternoon, right, my colleague sent in our WhatsApp group chat a quote by this Christian minister and also an American author, Max Lucado. He said that my father did not do anything unusual. He did what fathers are supposed to do, which is being there, right? So this can be controversial, but I think it resonates deeply with me because I want to be there for my wife, for my baby during the growing up years. While I cannot be a perfect caregiver, but being there, I think that it makes a lot of difference to the whole dynamic of parenthood.
Actually, Kai, I just want you to quickly try to convince dads out there that if they're having any doubt that they should be giving time to their babies, what would you say to them, just very quickly?
I think it's really important when during the first phase of development of the newborn, it's very important for dads to be very much involved, because I think that's the only opportunity for us to be like really knee deep in the works with the spouse as well. Like for example, for myself, I'm still on permanent night shift, feeding our newborn. So I think like that gives like a very intangible bond as well.
That's fabulous, because you're building all these family bonds.
Yeah.
Are you able to transfer that value into your business or your job?
For sure. I think like with that experience, knowing the hardship of caring for a newborn, I think it will definitely translate to how I would like to care for my colleagues and my co-workers. Because I think from there, it will also create the standards of the type of workplace culture that I would like to inculcate in my company as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Brave, you have talked about the compensation, which is what you want, and that you should negotiate for the points. Is there anything else that people with no children can do?
Yes, so basically I think like tapping on my earlier points also, like there's an assumption that, you know, single people only have like one mouth to feed, whereas married couples, you know, they have like more. I think we should also consider that usually when there's a family dynamic where, like, you know, they're married couples, the single one is the one that's looking after the parents. So, you know, like we have to also, I think we need to consider family care leave also for singles, right? And also some people have pets because they're not married. It's by choice that they are single. So, and I also think that by providing singles with all these additional leaves, right, is no way encouraging singles to continue to stay single. Because I think it's not a determining factor for singles to want to be single. So I think that we don't have to worry about that, and yeah.
Okay, I like that, because you are taking matters into your own hands and being positive about that as well. Now, before we end, let's run one final poll. Are Singapore workplaces family friendly when it comes to leave entitlements? Yes or no? Are Singapore workplaces family friendly when it comes to leave entitlements? What do you guys think?
I think we are in a somewhat a rat race society. I do feel we need to be a little bit more kinder to ourselves. By taking a step back and caring for ourselves, caring for others. Hence, I think we really need to, as Singaporean workers, we really need to step up in terms of being a more friendlier place for families.
And I think it's really important that we are having this conversation.
Yeah.
If I can do a quick summary, and that is the policy announcements have been made. That is just the first step. It is the other softer things like changing attitudes and mindsets that will take a bit of time.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that's all the time we have tonight. Thank you for your comments and your sharing, as well the rest of you. Good night.
Thank you.
This program is available on demand for free on MeWatch.